All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of Last Newsdesk on the Left. I am your host, Mac Paladin. A couple things before I introduce everybody. Sorry we weren't here last week. I was feeling very ill, and between that and dealing with my work and finances, I wanted to make sure that I was in top form for the broadcast. And frankly, I did not want to talk about Facebook. Introducing the crew, of course, we have our co-host Adam.
Hello.
Kevin's here.
Hey, how y'all doing?
We got a petty fan lurking on the controls.
Hiding in the boxes.
Our new shining star co-host, the Golix, is also here.
As far as you know, maybe I'm secretly somewhere else.
Well, I say it that way because, of course, I'm going to be talking a little bit about channel progression on the channel and stuff like that. But I mean, let's be honest. You've really effectively been co-host on my Retro Gaming Emporium channel, and it's been a huge boon. So I wanted to give you a special shout out at the top of this broadcast.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. And of course, bringing your genre savvy friends along has been a huge help as well. So, sparked some great discussion. We've been having a lot of fun. We didn't actually have any Retro Gaming Emporium over the weekend because I had massive technical difficulties. Cox
They
Cable.
weren't even your fault this time.
Yeah. Cox Cable, in their infinite wisdom, decided to do a massive infrastructure upgrade, and they gave us weeks and weeks of warning. But every time they do this, I have no internet for 4 days. I mean, for all intent and purposes, I was able to finally get started on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I hear that's a thing that the kids are into these days.
Might be a little bit.
Well, considering how many JoJo cosplayers I see out there on my friends list and news feed in the sub age 30 category, so I figured I'd give it a shot, and I'm liking it so far. But I feel like I'm laughing inappropriately at it. But anyway, so that's that. As far as channel structure is going, this is probably the third from final episode of Last News Desk on the Left for this season, and I'm sorry to say, for the foreseeable future. The ratings haven't been terribly good, and this year has found us for lack of a better term, for want of a nail. in terms of subject material, having good controversy to discuss. There's plenty going on, but also not a lot going on, and
Yeah.
so I'm kind of just, me personally, I'm not really feeling it. I feel like we gave it a good shot. Of course, we did start during the highly charged 2020 election season and all that stuff. So, I mean, we had a good start. But it's just, I don't know, it's just not really growing the channel the way I wanted to. And I would like to focus more on entertainment, which is why we are planning, hopefully within the first quarter of 2022, of reviving our old podcast, Moonhawk Studios Presents, rather than calling it Redux, Redo, or any other such quaint name. It will simply be season, 14?
13, if I'm remembering.
I think we ended with 13 on YouTube.
Well, I mean, you can just look it up on YouTube, I suppose.
It'll be 13 or 14, whatever it is.
Yeah, we'll be starting with a new season revival of the original show. I think that gives us a little bit of credibility, and it of course has some history attached to it, which we can then use to expand our TV tropes page.
That's still a thing, isn't it?
It is indeed. And of course we'll have our regulars here. We'll have Adam and Kevin, and hopefully Kiro, aka Varias, will be rejoining us. And of course, that also means that we'll be retaining the rest of the original cast here. Golix and Petty Fan will be here offering their sparkling repartee while we look into interviewing internet celebrities and beyond.
Now,
And
what do they call that if it is from a particular region of France?
fromage?
Well, it's a champagne joke. It's only champagne. If it's from the Champagne region of France. Otherwise, it's just sparkling wine.
Oh, okay.
And no, that's literally true. It's a protected designation of origin or whatever the fuck the name is.
Not in this country.
Yeah.
Okay, there are other ones then. But anyway,
French, all French wines like that.
Yep. So
anyway,
yeah.
it's a joke that I didn't make up.
So there's going to be big changes here on the channel, and you guys, if you are out there and you're regular watchers of my channel, you will recognize that some of them have already been implemented. I have started a long play of the Sega Saturn version of Castlevania Symphony of Night, which is also known by its original title, Akamajo Dracula X Nocturne in the Moonlight. Which apparently was its original name on the PlayStation as well. I was not aware that the Japanese version was actually called Nocturne in the Moonlight. I thought it was always Symphony of the Night, but apparently I was tripping.
Wasn't it Double X?
I think it according to the game box, no.
Weird.
Yeah, and then the instead of Castlevania, it says Dracula X. So I thought it was double. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. They didn't switch over to Castlevania in Japan until like Harmony of Dissonance, if I'm remembering correctly.
And I think the N64 games are actually called Castlevania in Japan. Most of the other ones are still Akumajo Dracula something or other.
Interesting. Anyway, I'm keenly interested in this channel actually living up to its name of being the Retro Gaming Emporium. And so I have dug out of the bins and out of the archive, and there's a massive stack of games behind me that you cannot see for various consoles, specifically CD-based stuff. I am finding all of the compatible emulators with this machine that I've got over here, so that way I can run my physical media. Turns out a lot of emulators use ROMs only, and that is not what I want to do. Because I want this channel to be legal and on the up and up. So wherever I have physical media, I'm going to use it. And any time that the emulator does not allow me to use physical media, then I will do a presentation where I show the physical media on the at least on the first broadcast for any long plays that I do. So that way we're all on the up and across, and above board and all that good stuff. But I definitely want to show this off because I have, at almost 45 years of age, I have a rather extensive retro gaming library, in spite of selling off thousands upon thousands of dollars worth of stuff to try to bolster my finances throughout the last couple of years. So I have a rather cool selection of Mega Drive CD games. I have Sega CD, I have 32X, I have Genesis, I have Super Nintendo, I have NES, I have Atari Jaguar, I've got American and Japanese PlayStation games. I've got Turbo Duo games. I have the only legal emulator for the Turbo Duo, which is one you had to pay for, and I bought it 20 years ago, and the code still works. So I'm very pleased with that. And so I will be putting out, I will be inventorying what I have left and putting out a massive list of different things that I can try. And not all of them have to be long plays. They can just be, short plays where we try it out and see if we can figure it out. Because a lot of these games I have mainly for their personal collectability and their, how can I put this? Their nostalgic value to me personally as an anime fan. More specifically as a classic anime fan, late 70s, 80s, and 90s. So there was a lot of that. And that was why I collected those systems back in the day. So we'll be discussing that more. I'm hoping that during our break on this show, I will actually be able to do more episodes of Max Mind, which is, of course, my personal podcast where I discuss the things that I'm interested in and give a damn about, and studio progress and film progress, which, of course, we just signed a new actor, so, I'll be able to talk about that. So, lots of different stuff. We're definitely going to try to make the channel more entertainment friendly, and and live up to the Retro Gaming Emporium moniker. Playing more 8-bit and 16-bit era stuff and early 32-bit era stuff, which is what we're doing right now. So, lots of exciting stuff coming your way. So, all right, now that that's all out of the way, let's talk turkey. What off your post-election hangover, and boy, is it a fucking doozy. Adam, why don't you go and lay it on us here?
All right. I mean, calling it a doozy is overstating things. And that's kind of been a problem with the post-election narrative. Like, CNN had a fucking Chiron up this afternoon or sometime during the day that said, Dems reckoning misses the mood of the nation or something like that. Really dramatic stuff. And I will say, the last night wasn't good for the Democratic Party in Virginia, but it was a statewide race. It wasn't the midterms, it wasn't the presidential election, it was a state election. Calm the fuck down a few notches.
It might have, based on historical precedents, it might have some minor foreshadowing for what is to come, but we've still got a lot of time left to course correct. So
also apparently, Virginia has a really long habit of electing governors that are of the opposite party of the president. So,
and also New Jersey did, but we actually, no matter how narrow it was, we managed to break that last night.
Yeah, and Dems got elected in places, Dem initiatives got voted for. It was actually, not that bad in the overall result. It's just,
didn't a woman of color win the Boston mayoral election for the first time in 199 years?
Well, an Asian American woman. I wouldn't say woman of color because they did have a black mayor who, decided to go nuts. But yeah, this is the first Asian American woman to win to be mayor of Boston. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And there is a city in Michigan that just elected its first Arab American mayor.
I think it's Dearborn, Michigan is the name of the city.
Yeah.
Dearborn, Michigan, Arab mayor, and another Asian American mayor won in the city of Cincinnati.
Like I said, so. Yeah.
But yes, you can to some extent boil it down to party that has really kind of not made a whole lot of progress on actually getting the agenda that they said that they wanted to do done through multiple reasons, some self-inflicted and some definitely other, does not so great in intermediate election.
And also there are other factors, including the fact that the supply chains are in a fucking mess right now.
Which everybody loves to blame on the president, like he has a magic wand that's going to just fix,
Well,
it's just how it's.
Yes, I shall retroactively wave my magic presidential dongle and make it so that all of the things that would have been built 5 months ago, if people didn't have fucking COVID, were built then.
But let's talk about the knock-on effect that's going on right now, because Dems still wrapped up in infrastructure and reconciliation and all that. They don't have any time or effort or energy to address inflation, supply chains, voting rights. They don't have time to address anything else because this massive package is still being meted out.
I hope this doesn't become their health care, because
it won't. Because it looks like it's getting close to being done here.
So a lot of the naysaying from Manchin and stuff like that right now is a little bit of posturing. You think it's a little bit of posturing?
We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see after this gets out of the House. I mean, when the infrastructure package gets out of the House, that's going to Biden anyhow. That's going to Biden no matter what. But in terms of reconciliation,
You're talking about the bipartisan one, the $1 trillion one.
Yeah, because that already passed the Senate. It's been held up in the House. The Rules Committee and stuff has already gotten their stuff done on that. So once that passes, that's heading straight to Biden because there wasn't really there's not any tweaking being done with that. If you've noticed, there's no tweaking done with that. It's basically been held for that other bill. It isn't a case of, well, we're holding on to this, we can put more stuff in there. No, that's not what's happening with that. So once
they're kind of holding it. They're holding it back because they don't want everyone else to pull every support from the other thing once it gets passed.
Right.
I do remember AOC and the squad and Jen Powell and all that talking about the fact that they were really hoping to shove both bills forward together, but that really isn't going to happen.
Well, I think they're probably going to vote for both of those things around the same time in the House.
Yeah.
Right, but then reconciliation it will take a little bit of time, so they're not going to be simultaneously. They're not going to land on Biden's desk at the same time.
Right.
Well, this is why the progressives want the Build Back Better stuff to be voted on first. Now, so they don't lose their leverage. Because like the idea is to vote on these in tandem, but I'm suspecting that the reason why the CPC, the Congressional Progressive Caucus, wants Build Back Better voted on first is so because if when the bipartisan infrastructure deal passes, that goes to the president. The Senate still has to put their stamp on BBB. So, like I said, there's still things that's being worked out on this. I think prescription drug prices just got put back in. And I think paid leaves back in. Like I said,
in the pre-show we had talked about where I was seeing articles, and you guys said nay, but I was seeing articles where they were talking about the Congressional Progressive Caucus was threatening to go back to the original $6 trillion idea and holding this up because they were getting tired of the already watered down $3.5 trillion bill getting whittled down further, and they were like, this far, no further. I think that was what it was really all about, was that they don't want the 3.5 going less.
No, well, here's the thing. They're not getting 3.5 either.
Right. But they're trying to get as much back into it as possible, is basically what the reality is.
Manchin's not getting his 1.57 either. I think the current calculation of everything that been added back in is looking like 2.5, but apparently they still have the pay fors in this.
From what I've seen, it's going to be probably 1.75, but for the pay fors, it'll go up to 2.1. That's the latest thing I saw.
Yeah. Like I said, everything is still in flux because this has been part of the thing. Like it actually takes a lot of time, effort, and negotiation crafting something this big, something this monumental, and not every different factions want different things. Once again, I've seen this before on Republican side and on the Democrat side. This I know people have said that we've seen nothing like this before. Bullshit. This is what the ACA was.
The numbers might be different, but the drama is the same.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, this was repealing health care for the Republicans. The thing is, I'm pretty sure that something will be passed because, one of the wake-up calls that the Dems should have gotten from the elections is having something is better than having nothing.
Yeah.
Because, especially since, the Dems have they did promise that governance would happen,
Right.
and governance hasn't really happened.
Yes.
Well, and we just came out of a pretty bad hurricane season, and
Yeah.
and we're still dealing with a pandemic, and so there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen before another major bridge collapses and kills 1,000 people or something.
Yes.
It would be kind of nice if we could get there before that happens.
Yeah.
But
Forget about elections. Let's not kill more Americans.
infrastructure was the easy part.
Yeah.
Like hard infrastructure's been the easy part. That passed the Senate like 6 months ago. That's not a highway bill either. Even if it was, what's wrong with a highway bill? Like,
I'm quite frankly, I'm tired of taking my life into my own hands every time I go down the I-10.
Yeah.
But
bridges
my
are
point is,
cracking.
like, it's not been,
Yeah.
it's not been the infrastructure stuff that's the hard part. It's stuff. It's because when we're using the overall term infrastructure, but what this became was like 6 different bills combined into one, because this is the only way to do things is through the reconciliation. Because Manchin and Sinema said no exclusions for the filibuster ever. So we got to use the reconciliation to do climate stuff.
And I keep seeing ridiculous stuff too, where people are just like, well, they're weakening on their position. No, they aren't. Since when? Who's so what if Biden changes his mind? It doesn't change Manchin and Sinema's mind, and they're the ones who matter in this particular vote.
Yeah.
He clearly has no leverage on them.
Nobody has leverage because everybody has leverage.
Everybody has leverage, so nobody does.
It was like I said. It was like a lot of the performative actions from the Progressive Caucus to try to shame Manchin and Sinema into doing stuff. It's like, first of all, you have to realize you can't shame people who do not experience the emotion.
No.
And as Mitch McConnell himself said, senators are beholden to basically nobody.
Yeah.
Aside from the people who directly elect them.
Right.
And
most of them, they don't give a damn about them.
Yeah, and once again, in terms of Manchin, I can honestly say he's been representing his constituency, his state. It's West Virginia.
Right.
That has all sorts of problems, but, here's the thing for the fucking internet. No, the Senate is not getting fucking revamped anytime fucking soon.
Unfortunately.
It's very difficult to change that stuff, even if it was worth doing.
I don't think people really get, considering how infrequently we actually do anything with modifying the Constitution directly, I think it's because of that lack of modification that people do not understand exactly how difficult that process is.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a constitutional process.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The Senate is not going to fucking... is part of that process, and is not going to fucking vote its power away.
Right.
Well,
unless somehow we manage to elect 50 or 60 lunatics to the Senate who then take all the moderates with them.
No, the other kind of lunatic.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely arguments about the number of lunatics in the Senate.
Well, yeah. I was very specific on that point. I said 50 or 60 lunatics will take all the moderates with them, down this rabbit hole.
The Senate was very deliberately set up this way, as a great compromise, as it's called, for the House. Like, the House is proportionally represented. The Senate is flatly represented. That's the end of the story. It's been baked in since the beginning. And that's not ever going to fucking change. If only because the Senate isn't going to change because that's how the Senate was structured.
And folks, there is no process out there for reverse engineering the Constitution. The way that a bill becomes an amendment is it must originate in the House of Representatives, be passed by a 2/3 majority. It must pass the Senate, and there's no deviation on this order. It must pass the Senate also by 2/3, roughly 67 votes, because 66 gets you there, but it's really not. And then it goes to a constitutional convention where the states vote on it. It goes on their ballot during the next election year. They do not hold special elections for this. It goes when the next time there's a federal election, whether it's for the Senate during the midterms or for president every 4 years, then the constitutional amendment is added to the ballot, and it must pass 37 out of 50 states in order to become a constitutional amendment.
And exactly 37 states.
Yep. More is fine, less...
If doesn't do the job.
And on top of that, they have to explicitly not set a sunset rule on the amendment, so that way it doesn't automatically fall off the ballot in 2 years. In other words, it will keep showing up on all the states that haven't ratified it or officially voted it down until it either passes or it sunsets.
Right.
Also,
if an amendment is ratified, it can be passed at any point. This is how we got amendment number 27, if I'm remembering correctly.
I thought it was 28, but yeah.
28. It's the whatever the most recent amendment is, which
in
is actually
in 1992. Yeah. It was originally proposed in 1797, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's accurate.
And then it took like 200 years to finally pass because we kept adding states to the union,
Yeah.
So that was an amendment that was set forward without a sunset clause, and so it just kept showing up until I don't even remember what the last state was. It was Arkansas or something like that that said, "Oh well, I guess we'll ratify that." Not that it did anything. I mean, we still have Citizens United. Basically, any benefit that so-called campaign finance reform amendment, was supposed to handle was immediately thrown out the fucking window by something vastly more complex that it didn't address.
Actually, money is a word, so it counts for free speech.
There's a good way to put it. But I mean, QAnon isn't the only group out there that puts out conspiracy theories. The latest nonsense was that I guess JFK Jr. was going to return from the dead and anoint Donald Trump president for life or something.
Not just anywhere. Not just anywhere. But Dealey Plaza, where his father got his head blown off.
Yeah.
Yes. JFK Jr.
Real classy.
Magically reappear in the place where his father got killed.
Well, isn't that because...
Number one, he survived the plane crash from 1999. Magically. Was out on the lam for the last 21 years. 30, however
20,
long it is.
Yeah, 30,
22 years.
22 years, yep. Oh,
right.
It gets better. There was people on the fringe, and now there's infighting amongst QAnon members. They're like, this isn't a part of our official platform, and then the
they
best...
sold T-shirts!
Almost like it's a fucking religion.
The best... Oh, wait, it gets better. You want to tie it to religion? There was actually some people mumbling in the group that the whole reason that this was going to happen was because, didn't you know, the Kennedys are actually tied to the bloodline of Jesus.
Good God.
Are they high?
And you wonder why the people who dare to even hint that they're officially associated with QAnon were like, no, that's too fringe even for us.
They were like, the fuck are these people going on about?
Well, they may be friends, but there were a lot of people that were hanging around in Dealey Plaza, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, it was...
Not even Elvis is alive, people were this nuts.
I'm looking forward to the entertainment file, because I get to talk about inside jobs. I'm like, which is a series that's mocking conspiracy theories.
Oh my
Yeah.
God! So that
Yeah, I'd
so,
actually heard that that's pretty good.
so that's a thing I'm happy to report this week. Flew over like a lead balloon. Oh, Donald Trump did not magically get anointed King of Kings. Damn.
Yeah, and John F. Kennedy Jr. isn't alive and didn't show up at the place where his father died.
Well,
Or if he is alive,
look,
the good goddamn sense
look,
to stay
look,
hidden.
look. You could say he literally ghosted them.
Get the fuck
Yeah.
out.
He did. He did.
So to get back on track for the election stuff, this is another thing that the Dems have to drop. At least, unless Donald Trump becomes a more visible figure again. You know, he is currently the past. He is defeated.
Nobody wants to talk about him anymore.
Yeah, he's done right now. He might come back in 2024, but we'll deal with that cycle.
Well, I just
Right?
hope he keeps doing rallies where he tells Republicans to stay home.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
here's the reason why T-Mac lost now. Here's the reason why he lost. I think it's pretty clear at this point, considering we've had now a full day to pretty much digest things, both in terms of the numbers and in terms of people actually on the ground.
Yeah.
Terry McAuliffe was a terrible candidate.
Which
He was
is
a
amazing
garbage-
since he's a former governor of Virginia.
Right. He was a garbage candidate. He didn't talk about his record much at all. He pretty much got cocky into thinking, well, this is a blue state. I don't have to talk to a lot of people. He didn't show up in a lot of places that he needed to.
Right.
He let others do that work for him. He's the one running for governor. He has to show the hell up. Number two. And then you have all of the stuff about the economy. You have Afghanistan, that thing also. That probably hurt him just a little bit, maybe in the Hampton Roads area, where the military are, you see. So you have all of that. You've got COVID still a thing. You've got the economic issues involving inflation and supply chain. You've got all that going on. And then this dumbass goes out and says, well, parents shouldn't really be involved in their children's education.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
He took the GOP.
I mean, if you phrase it that way, I think the actual wording used was more along the lines of parents shouldn't be telling schools what they can and can't teach, which is much more,
Well, it's still,
sensible,
but unfortunately, that's not how people saw it.
Oh no, I'm not
That's
saying
the
it
point.
worked well.
Right, and that's the point.
That's his
And
basket
you
of
have
that was his basket of deplorables moment.
Yeah, I would say that. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, but what it
It
outlet
doesn't matter if it's true. If
It
it's
doesn't matter.
insulting to the electorate,
Yes.
it's bad.
Yeah. He took the right wing GOP educational cultural bait du jour of the moment. He took that bait and he overdosed on it.
Yeah.
He treated it like it was cocaine and he couldn't stop.
It's funny
it
because he's a
killed
Kennedy.
Right.
He
It
ripped.
killed him. It killed him, and it killed the rest of the ticket by association.
Ripping a big
Because
old
that's how-
line.
Yes, it killed everybody. Because Terry McAuliffe couldn't just simply say, this isn't happening in our schools. It will not happen in our schools under my administration. That's the way it should have ended it. Pure, plain, and simple. But because he decided to laugh off some of the stuff and then also simply say, well, parents, and then insult parents, it pissed him off just enough to make him lose by 2 points. If he hadn't opened his mouth and put his foot in it, he might have gotten a narrow win like Murphy did in New Jersey.
But there's more, because that explains how, he lost, the lieutenant governor lost, and the AG lost. Doesn't explain how the House of Delegates split. That's
Well, it kind of does. It kind of
does, but it's missing the fact that there was poor coordination between the gubernatorial campaign and all the local, representative campaign.
Yeah, but that's what I was talking about earlier about how, he let others do his dirty work. That's what I was getting at there. It's basically,
I need to make that clear because, not everybody might know that connection.
right,
Yeah.
right.
But, and that was, apparently they didn't hook up until September, which is really fucking late for these things.
Yes.
Supposedly, like, over the summer, June, July. You know,
The moment you get the nomination in hand.
Yeah.
The moment that you get the nomination in your hand, you say, I gladly accept your nomination to be this office, is the moment your people are on the phone with every individual Democratic Party in every individual county. The moment of. But he
I need to highlight this because
yes.
This is why Terry was so bad. Because we've had other aberrations in off election year, like electing Doug Jones in 2017, or
Right.
Who's the governor of Kentucky? Like
Bashir.
Bashir.
Yeah.
Like those were because those particular like Roy Moore was so bad. We
Right.
got a Democrat for a senator out of fucking Alabama.
Right.
Or, we got a Kentucky governor. That wouldn't explain why did the Dems have a complete fucking rout in Virginia.
Right.
There were deeper issues going on here.
Right. I mean, when it comes to this type of stuff, you have to have coordination.
It's also
everybody has to be on the same page, and people have to have something to talk to people about.
It's also, I don't know why people thought Virginia was a solidly blue state now. It's a purple state.
It was because of multiple, cycles, right?
Yeah.
And again, the real issue here is the fact that, the Democrats did too much in terms of, pissing off enough people to make that white working class losing rate big enough to lose.
Although again,
I'm going to go a place that some people might not agree with, but I think it holds value here. If you want to boil down the biggest problem the Virginia Democrats had, it's a almost Hillary Clinton sense of arrogance about everything.
I mean, I don't think Hillary was arrogant, but it is arrogance at play here without question. This was cockiness.
Okay, but there's you do have to keep in mind the fact that throughout history, though, Virginia tends to always go against the party that is president in their off-year gubernatorial elections. So if the president, and it's also directly tied to the president's approval rating. If the president is a Democrat and he or she, they, whatever, has a less than 50% rating in almost 100% of the Virginia elections, that party loses.
There is a certain amount of throw the bums outism involved in the American electoral process in many states.
Although let me push back on that just a little bit and note the fact that the margin of the loss here was only 2 points.
No, but it doesn't have
the lowest margin in terms of there have been other situations like this over the course of 20 years. The margin of loss bigger.
That's because both candidates were bad.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. There's some instances back in like the 90s where it was a 6 point loss. It was a bigger loss when
No, but I'm saying is that the Republican candidate in this particular case wasn't lighting the world on fire. It's just that McAuliffe did a bad, and his current sitting president has a low approval rating. It's a combination of things.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is that, again, the loss was only 2 points. I'm pretty sure that if Terry McAuliffe didn't seem to tell parents that they should stay out of their kids' education,
that's him doing a bad. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's a combination of things, though. That alone might not have done it. If Biden was soaring, like if he had a 62% approval rating or something insane like that, or even a 55% approval rating, it might have been even narrower.
I think he still would have lost because of the fact that he decided to laugh in parents' faces, and parents didn't like that.
They're like, listen, I pay my property taxes so that you can take care of my kids for me, but I'm not going to have none of this telling me what I can and can't tell you what to do.
Well, it's more like you can't tell me that I shouldn't worry about what my kids are taught, which maybe this should be the dropping point of the topic of the jour here.
Yeah. Like, I mean, critical race theory can be multiple things apparently, because
No,
nobody
it can be one thing, and then people can use it to mean something that it isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
what
we're
critical
finally.
race
Yeah, go ahead.
theory actually is it is a collegiate course level examination of American history through a
Racial lens.
through a racial lens.
Mostly,
it's the examination of how race has affected
Every
things
part
in
of
American history.
specifically legislative decision making and criminal justice, because it is largely, by and large, taught in law school. It's not just a general. I mean, it's a general college course you could take, but you really don't want to take it unless you're going for a law degree.
Mhm.
Right. It's very much in the law schools.
It's a very specific analysis of how the racial divide has affected legislation,
Right.
government policy, and application of the law.
Right. That is what CRT is. It is
Mhm.
taught on collegiate. It's taught on the collegiate level, mostly in law schools, and it is not taught in the K through 12 level to K through 12 students.
Right.
And it is not, and that is not
Because
being
it's
exposed-
complicated.
Teaching people about Japanese internment during World War II, teaching people about the Trail of Tears and the colonization of North America is just called history.
Yes.
It is not some radical idea that teaching kids the truth about what actually happened during the formation of America and all the years subsequently. It is not a radical idea to tell them, yeah, we kind of fucked over the Native Americans.
That's the problem. They don't want people to know the truth.
Yeah, but that's just it. They haven't actually put any legislation forth stopping them from saying that.
Yeah, they're just trying to very badly.
Unless you start looking at pretty much all of Macmillan's textbooks, that say things like they brought over volunteer workers from Africa. Really?
Yeah.
Did you now?
Yeah.
Oh, and the Native Americans graciously gave up their land to make room for all those white settlers. Well, how nice of them!
Yeah. It's not like
How delightful! How amazing!
Yeah. Because
where are all those Native Americans so I can thank them for that? Oh,
yeah. That's right. They were buried in a hole.
Yeah.
They're portrayed.
Yeah. Oops.
They're portrayed as they gave us land, or they were savages that needed to be stopped.
They were savages that need to be civilized. The first president of the United States.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but yeah, what this whole anti-CRT movement, and I put movement in air quotes because it's AstroTurf, because of course it is.
Mm-hmm.
This whole movement is.
I still can't not hear cathode ray tube.
But
I've made that joke before.
But this movement,
at my peril.
But this movement is one gigantic white spray-painted Trojan horse designed to pretty much put everything in every social studies class in America under the microscope, and to perhaps further whitewash it even more than it already has been historically.
Right.
Because let's be freaking clear, the whole concept of learning about the truth in K through 12 social studies classes, which is not CRT but rather what's in the textbooks as we speak, is a relatively recent phenomenon.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I took AP US history in the 11th grade, it was unvarnished. It was unpleasant.
Yeah.
We learned about the Trail of Tears. We learned about the era of good stealings. We learned about the era of good stealings. We learned about all the bullshit that went on during Reconstruction. My history teacher actually read from A People's History of the United States. Even though it was not required as part of the curriculum in California, I benefited from actually hearing passages from that book.
Well, my social studies teacher in high school didn't go that far, but he did. Those classes did have the picture from Wounded Knee from
Well,
the
social studies and history are two different things.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Even though they have a loose tie together, they are definitely different things.
Yeah,
social studies
I
can
think
be
at low grade levels, social
All right,
studies.
stop talking over each other.
Sorry. I think at low grade levels, history is considered part of social studies.
Yes, it was
Because social studies also includes civics and stuff like that.
Civics
That's
is supposed to be
what it was.
civics is supposed to be a separate course. Yes.
Depends on the state.
Yeah, well, in my thing, it was probably mixed up a little bit together.
Well, they've been trying.
That's why I'm saying that social studies.
They've basically eliminated civics in 49 out of 50 states anyway. So I think.
Yeah, well, I know for a fact that I took it before.
I had civics in high school as well. Same state.
Yeah. So, but the fact of the matter is that what this movement is designed to pretty much whitewash what was already whitewashed and was starting to pull back a little bit. This is basically a backlash to any sense of trying to add additional truth to those type of courses.
Well, and also, I was trying to make. I was also trying to make a point that I'm kind of old.
Yes,
so to kind of underline Adam's point that this is a recent phenomenon.
Yes, it is this whole thing is very recent, and it basically boils down to the basic point that historically
being said.
Right.
So apparently, going back to the election that happened, or the elections that all happened yesterday, apparently, all or a lot of the big CRT is evil pushers that were actually running for the school board, the most overt people got defeated pretty handily.
Well, there were some who did win. Let's be fair here.
Yeah, I'm like, some win, but
some lost, but some who won. Yeah. Let's be fair.
Yes, but it's not the it's not the uniform push that you'd think it would be.
Right.
Because there's
and you know what? If we could be frank about Virginia here, the CRT stuff was basically where all of the underlying anxieties of, some things in education being taken away, the economic, the whole supply chain inflation stuff, all sorts of different things were pretty much put together and then hooked up on the CRT, and that's what pretty much drove it the stake into the heart when T-Mac opened his mouth.
It's also so there's some bad leftist pushes that are going on right now that we haven't really talked about. And that's they are pushing for the elimination of things like the gifted and talented programs or AP courses. Anything that emphasizes excellence.
Right.
And, I'm sorry, or maybe I'm not, but we really don't do that commie bullshit. Mind you, not even the Soviet Union did that kind of commie bullshit because they still recognize excellence, and talent. It's like
now, frankly, a lot of the testing mechanisms in this country are very problematic, but at the same time, you don't go full bore taking stuff.
You don't go
education. Yes,
we need to stop trying to eliminate everything that offends everybody.
Yeah, you don't suddenly go all the way around to fucking libertarian or something like that. You're fucking Syndrome from The Incredibles here. Everyone is special, so nobody is special.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Mm-hmm. There are some people who are better at things than other people.
Yeah.
And those can be quantified.
It should be, and the thing is that when somebody displays excellence, it should be encouraged.
Yes.
Oh, but you might make somebody else feel bad. Oh no, their feelings are hurt.
Deal with it.
Yeah, life sucks. Get a helmet. Okay?
It's part of how we keep the species strong.
We need smart people.
Yeah.
Okay,
We need smart people to solve all these problems we have.
I don't know if I don't think people understand this, but we've seen what happens when dumb people lead us. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of one of the big problems with the Trump era. Not just like him himself, but this war on experts. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah, it's like that's what I'm saying. It's like we had dumb people lead us and encourage dumbness.
Mhm.
Okay, and it does not lead for stable, secure, and
it's
intelligent life.
anti-intellectualism.
Yes, yes. Of course, the
Yep.
fact is that although on the other hand, you're upset about losing all that excellence, and meanwhile you elected people who are not excellent in their own right, but that's a different subject, a different topic of discussion. But the fact of the matter is that yes, you know, liberals are driving the idea that we can't put some intelligent people over others, and that's a bit of a problem.
Yeah, like
The
I mean,
right,
it's okay to say that people aren't better because of that, but
look, liberals look. The thing for liberals would be to encourage intelligent, excellent people so that they can lead into a better future instead of, well, we can't have some people be ahead of others. It's like, hey, you're doing what the right wants. Stop it.
anyway,
We
we should probably move on to sports ball. I know it's rare, but a rare fucking event happened.
So what is that?
yeah, didn't like Atlanta win something or something?
Yeah, the Atlanta Braves are your World Series championships.
holy shit.
Yep. Yes, they are. Yep. First time since 1995.
Kevin, why don't you give us the breakdown here, since you're in the
Yes,
area.
I am. Yes, sports is one of my subjects du jour. Yes, the Atlanta Braves are indeed your World Series champions for the first time since 1995. They defeated the Houston Astros, who a couple of years ago cheated their way to a World Series title. And yes, bang, trash can banging in the background. But the Braves are your champions. They beat the Astros. I think it was 4-1. Or no, 4 games. I think it was 4-2. Actually, sorry. They won it in Houston, where a couple years ago you might remember a certain Super Bowl that ended the way it did.
Anything else?
I mean, that's pretty much it. Other than there's some things involving the Braves that are, it's one of those things where look, there are a bunch of white people around here still, and
They're still doing the chop.
Yes, the chop.
And
The chop, war chant.
I know, like
It's one. It's a you just got to deal with it kind of thing.
well, it's also become another subset of culture wars. Now,
Yeah.
Because
Look,
it
when
did.
it comes to this type of stuff, it's not going to change. It's just not. I mean, unfortunately, outside of Washington,
It'll take a while to change.
it'll take a while. But
Because, we used to have the Washington, racist name.
yes.
I mean, you can say what
Are
the
they
name
still
was.
literally the Washington football team now?
Yes, they are.
They're still working on the new name. Okay.
There's no law against saying what the original name was. It's not like dead naming somebody.
No,
Yeah,
no,
but it's still a racist term, and therefore some people might not want to.
yeah. I'm not. I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna use it because this is just an actual slur.
Yeah.
Instead of just like calling a team the Indians or the Braves or what have you.
Although the Indians did change their name as well.
Yes, but they're having problems there because turns out the Guardians was taken by another team.
Whoops.
A roller derby team, to be exact.
Oh,
Well, you know what? So what?
if it's not the same sport, you know what? I don't care.
But sir,
Apparently
but
there's
sir,
some deeper issue there.
but sir, they'll run out of air soon. Fuck them.
Well, it may be a different sport, but it doesn't matter if it's trademarked.
Ah, well, okay. then I take that back. But it was still funny.
Spiders is still available.
Spiders is still available. Yeah, I mean that's the issue there. That was their team name before they became what they became.
Yeah.
So I mean that's the answer on that front.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a big deal around here, and well, enjoy it because baseball is probably going to be locked out within a month. So yeah, because I don't. This was not really talked about during the postseason run, which kind of amazing and hasn't really talked about much. But the collective bargaining agreement between between Major League Baseball and the MLBPA is up at the end of the month, and I don't
The
know if you know,
MLBPA being the union for what?
yeah,
Stadium workers?
no, for the players.
The Players Association is the PA.
All Players Association. Yeah, that's what
That makes
PA.
sense.
Yeah.
That starts with PNA.
Yeah, and I don't know if anybody knows this or not, but yeah, the Major League Baseball and the players don't like each other, and yeah, because the commissioner is a very hardline kind of guy, and the free agent market has been pretty well. The players don't really like it that much, and Rob Manfred has been trying to do things to make the game more exciting, but has actually hurt the game in a lot of ways.
Groovy.
And it's all going to be coming to a head, and the players are going to be locked, and the owners are going to lock up the players, and if there's no deal reached, we might lose spring training, and we might lose some of the early part of the next season, which baseball really needs right now because they're not in a good space because despite the fact that the Braves championship was big here in Georgia, it was the second least watched World Series in history.
Is this the end of Major League Baseball as we know it? Stay tuned for partial excitement.
And let me also remind everybody that the last time the players went out on strike, the last time we had a major labor dispute of a major variety was back in the mid-2000s, back in the mid-90s, and the reason why baseball got back any sense of its popularity, it lost over that, and lost a ton, was because players juiced.
The steroid era.
Steroids, yes.
Well, and bat corking.
And then also there was another labor dispute in the early 2000s, which was the last major labor dispute to speak of in baseball, and that led to almost Minnesota losing the Twins. And because of Minnesotans, Major League Baseball couldn't contract the Twins, and they had to keep the Expos going for a couple more years when they didn't want it. And then eventually Montreal lost its baseball team to Washington, and whatever. But yeah, so I hope you all enjoyed baseball the last couple of months because, well, things are about to get nasty by the end of the month. Once the hangover over this World Series championship is over, once you start seeing the reports that, yeah, baseball's going to lock out the players, all that love and all of that stuff is going to go right out the window.
How unfortunate.
How unfortunate, yeah. But, if baseball gets knocked down a couple of pegs, it couldn't happen to a better commissioner. So, there you go.
But the Mets and their World Series chances.
LOL Mets is a way of life, my friend.
Yep.
Always has been, and despite the hopes of so many coming into this year, so long will it be.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Meet the Mets, meet Mr. Met. Anyway, over to the entertainment file. A couple of things to cover here. Okay, so first off, Chris Pratt is apparently set to voice every animated character ever. Yeah. So he's been cast as the voice of Garfield.
This is I don't get this.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Bill Murray wasn't available.
I can see him as the kind of character that Mario usually is, but even when he's playing a schlubbier role, it's not really the Garfield kind of schlubby. I'm thinking specifically of his character in Parks and Rec.
Well, I'm just thinking he has no range.
Well, you kind of don't really.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
isn't every
it's
character
pretty-
that Pratt plays Star-Lord, basically?
Yeah, I mean, high profile, high energy, excitement or some kind. But look, can Hollywood please stop thinking that they could try to recreate the magic that Lorenzo music made?
Well, really, the
Can we
biggest.
stop?
Well, I think this is all ultimately partially a symptom of the fact that people still refuse to cast voice actors as
Yeah,
voices in major video things.
yeah.
People who have trained and worked at specifically the act of voicing an animated character instead of screen acting, which is not the same thing.
And for this particular situation, Frank Welker, right there, and you didn't want to use it because you wanted to do a star casting because unfortunately, that's the way Hollywood works.
Yeah, see ProZD's very short thing about the way that studio execs think you act when you find out that Chris Pratt is Mario.
Yeah.
They think
Yeah.
you'll be excited at this rather than
I'm
puzzled.
I'm actually starting to wonder if I'm literally the only studio on the planet that actually gives a shit about ethical voice casting.
Well, yes, you do.
Versus
Yes.
versus
The answer,
versus pure
yeah.
star power. It's like,
So,
The answer to that question is yes. The answer to that
well, we're talking about major motion pictures here. Like when you get to like anime and stuff, like obviously, voice actors are cast.
Unless it's a movie, or like if it's a studio,
Yeah,
all
but
the
I mean,
Studio Ghibli
yeah, but
movies
I mean-
got celebrity.
yeah, and then let me tell you something. The dubs suck balls.
Yeah, some of them are okay,
Yeah.
but no, they could be a lot better if they picked voice actors who are really good.
You know
at
what? I
specifically
can't.
voice acting.
I can't respond to that without saying something disparaging about people who are tone deaf.
Right.
Anyway,
It just
I agree that they could be a lot better.
highly overrated having Don Johnson
Yeah.
and Gillian Anderson in Princess Mononoke. Highly overrated.
I was thinking more Patrick Stewart and
Who doesn't-
Nausicaa and
yeah, who doesn't mock the Princess Mononoke dub? Billy Bob Thornton as a monk. Yeah.
admittedly, he's not exactly a good monk.
Good old Sling Blade,
Yeah. Or remember when Minnie Driver was a thing?
right?
Yes, it was a thing in the 90s.
Anyway, speaking of large franchises, so Alvin and the Chipmunks is apparently up for sale.
Like the
Yeah.
entire IP.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. I'd seen that. I just hadn't looked into the details of like, oh, okay, what do you mean up for sale?
Yeah. Well, see, the thing about it is that this IP actually was sold before.
Well, you see, when
and
they say up for sale, when one company loves another company's IP. Oh wait.
No, but
Or
But-
when one company does not particularly love their own IP.
Yeah.
or
Just wants to cash out.
right.
like-
Yeah, that's what this is. This is about cashing out. But this IP, but the Bagdasarians did sell the property off before. If you recall, they sold them to Universal back in the 90s when they weren't owned by NBC or everything else, when they were owned by the Canadian Water Company, Seagrams. But yeah, they sold off to Universal in the 90s, and Universal broke their contract, so the Bagdasarians got the IP back, and they've held it for the last, I think, like 10, 15 years. And now they're basically decided they're seeing everybody pretty much sell their IP. We talked about Garfield earlier. Jim Davis sold off his IP.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's selling IP off right now, and it's getting
Yeah, like
Jesus amount of money. And
another IP thing that happened that I don't think we mentioned was the entire story work of Robert Dahl are now owned by Netflix.
yes,
Roald Dahl?
Roald Dahl, yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know who Roald Dahl is.
Yeah,
Yes.
Matilda, Chocolate Factory, The Witches.
Etc. Yeah.
That's all owned by Netflix now. So, and here's the thing. I know there are people online who lament, "Oh, big corporation is buying X or Y property." But if an artist is fucking selling that shit, they can do that. Nobody's telling Jim
Yes,
Davis to.
right.
If Jim Davis wants to sell off Garfield, that's his prerogative. That's
Well,
just,
actually, he didn't sell off all of Garfield now because apparently this movie that we're talking about that's actually being put out by Sony. So basically, he sold his rights off to two separate entities.
the point is he can do that.
But he can do that. Yes, when you decide, hey, I want to cash out here, I want money. You're not saying no to that.
Or if you say no, you can say no to any amount of money because you want to control the thing you made. Just want to put that out there because I just see a lot of lamentations about, this isn't the Fox Disney merger or anything like that. This is a singular IP that's up for sale, and maybe it ends up at Viacom, CBS, maybe it ends up at Netflix, Warner Media, maybe somebody else.
Right. I mean, I think though that I think everybody is expected to Bagazarians to sell to sell the Viacom CBS because that Nick show was there, and that Nick show was big for them because they've been making reruns of it for ages. So
I think I myself have said that Viacom CBS is probably going to buy this because it seems like the kind of thing that they'd buy.
I mean, yeah, it's right in their wheelhouse, and they already got a foot in the door. So it's like if it went
The
to
real
anybody,
question is, what cinematic universe is Alvin and the Chipmunks going to end up being part of?
Oh God.
It'll end up somewhere.
Now they're going to make a cinematic universe out of Alvin and the Chipmunks. It's going to be all the versions of Alvin and the Chipmunks. Getting a head start on the multiverse portion of that.
They add the Smurfs to it.
Yeah. I mean,
no, the Smurfs are owned by Warner.
I mean, they could fix that.
Okay, technically it's owned by Puyo, which is a Belgian
Well,
company.
I don't know about that because Warner Brothers actually does make money.
Yes. Not from a lack of AT&T's stupidity.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers does actually make money, unlike Viacom CBS.
Yeah.
I mean,
as much as they keep, it's like if you keep renewing Star Trek for 5 seasons at a time at $8 million an episode, I don't know how the hell you're going to make all that back.
Yeah. I mean, they seem to be doing better than, say, Peacock.
Well, yeah.
True.
I mean, Peacock...
Didn't NBC fall to third for the first time in like a million years?
Well, here's the thing.
NBC, not this year, not this past year. NBC got number one in the best last season because of Olympics and Super Bowl.
Yeah.
No,
that's
in
the immortal words of Amber from Genshin Impact. In the immortal words of Amber from Genshin Impact, that's cheating.
Well, it may be cheating, but unfortunately,
I'm just saying it's not based on original programming. That's for damn sure.
Unfortunately, sports count.
Yep.
Sports count. That's why CBS has a sports division. That's why NBC has a sports division. That's why Fox has a sports division, and made it very clear that they needed a sports division in the mid '90s in order to make sure that they weren't the next Dumont.
It is surprising that Netflix never got into sports.
Well, maybe that's
because they wouldn't be able to easily cancel it.
and also probably would be too expensive for them, and also technically they don't necessarily need it.
Yeah, don't they have like a cookie? Don't they have a cookie cutter price for buying everything?
And also, really, when you think about it, premium, basically Netflix is the new HBO, Showtime, that kind of thing. And the only sport really that they had was boxing.
Which reminds me, I got to cancel my cable in January.
Huh?
Getting too expensive?
$254 a month.
Yeah. Time to cord cut.
Yeah, I'll reinvest some of the money into gigabit internet.
Yeah.
Although
really, it's kind of hard to cord cut when, basically everything, in terms of streaming combined, pretty much adds up to pretty much close to cable. Unless,
who buys into everything though? That's my question. Like, who really is going there? I need to have everything, including like Shudder and the Criterion Channel and Crackle.
I mean, face it, Tubi is free.
Yeah, that's very true.
You know,
you're probably going to have a few of them, and maybe you rotate in and out. But nobody has.
I really don't need to sit here and say, I need to have the option, even if I don't use it for 5 years, to, binge watch the OC. It's just, I just don't need that option. As long as I can get through JoJo's Bizarre Adventure at least once on Hulu, I'm good.
Well, you're going to need Netflix.
Oh.
You're flat out going to need it because Stone Ocean is only coming to Netflix.
Well, I mean, between the various members of this household, we have it. No one person is paying for everything here. Let me put it that way.
I'm just saying, like Netflix grabbed Part 6, which was a big frustration to anyone who watches Toonami. But
I mean, it's nice being able to watch Rick and Morty on the day that it airs on their website, as opposed to sitting here in front of my TV and watching it with commercials. But see, that's the problem is that they're like Cartoon Networks and Adult Swim's video players are fucking garbage.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, there's a lot of streaming sites out there that have garbage video players.
Yeah, it's like
turns out being good at that is not actually required. You'd think so, but no.
It's why I can't stand watching anything on Amazon Prime.
You'd think that Warner Brothers was trying to push everybody off of their free services on the internet onto their HBO Max or something.
And then there's like Funimation and Crunchyroll. Like, which player is worse on what?
Yeah.
It's like they're all pretty bad.
It's just that like the entire, like, everything that Warner Brothers has that is like quote unquote cable or network television stuff that they rebroadcast, if you have cable for free, like Cartoon Network and Adult Swim and Toonami and all that stuff, they have a independent website for each of those things, so there's a Rick and Morty page on the Adult Swim site and all that stuff, and they all use the same generic player that, like, you hit the commercial break, and if you score Yahtzee and get a blocked in your region, you got to restart the whole goddamn video.
Uh-huh.
And then
for the commercial being blocked in your region?
Yep. They're actually running region-specific commercials outside their designated region. I got commercials in Spanish.
That sounds very dumb.
I got low-resolution commercials in Spanish. I got low-resolution commercials in fucking German.
Uh-huh.
It's like well, we have a rough idea of where you are from your Cox IP address, but fuck if we know what server it's being routed through.
We're going to guess that you're probably approximately in the northern and western hemispheres.
And I got bad news for people using ad blocker. You can't even view those sites if you have your ad blocker turned on.
Uh-huh. Depends on the kind of ad blocker. Hint, you block Origin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I need to switch.
Did I hear a cash register for them cutting you a check?
Yeah. I say that out of love. And I have 3 ad blockers, so
yeah,
in case something doesn't work, I can recompile and reconfigure. Uh-huh. So.
You just said that so fast. I thought I heard a cash register ding somewhere.
I wish.
It would be nice.
Yeah. Anyway, so I guess we'll wrap up. I did say I would talk about this, but Inside Job, which is one of the newer Netflix adult comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the one where the gimmick is that the main character works for the secret society that is behind all of the conspiracy theories.
Yes and no, because the deep state turns out to be a corporation called Cognito Inc.
Aha, I see your pun.
Yes, and that's actually kind of one of the rubs here. It's taking a lot of real-world conspiracy theories and putting a twist on it. Like, for example, one of the episodes focuses on the moon landing. And, what is the real-life conspiracy theory? That the moon landing was fake. And it turns out there's a conspiracy there, but instead of the moon landing was faked, there's a sex colony on the moon.
Oh my god.
I mean,
I read a really interesting thing recently about how literally we just now today barely have the technology that it would have taken to actually fake the moon landing.
well, I'll tell you what. All the conspiracy theories will change once Roland Emmerich's new movie Moonfall comes out. Because obviously the moon is hollow and it's actually a spaceship for an alien civilization.
But Hollow Earth theory
we
is
still
in
fucking
the
landed on it.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, and Hollow Earth theory, of course, is even better because Hitler's obviously riding dinosaurs
Oh my fucking
in the center
God.
of the Earth under a base in Alaska, right?
They haven't gotten to Hitler yet.
Oh god.
Look,
Terrifying.
I'm just saying. I was really disappointed, in Iron Skies too.
Anyway, but yeah, everyone had this pegged as a Rick and Morty clone because, that's the popular thing to rip off. But it turns out it was Futurama. I wasn't expecting that. But yeah, it's like, because it's, a lot of the comedy is off of the character interactions. Like, and yeah, they could have stronger characterizations for the side characters, but how long did it take for Futurama to get there? Only the first 10 episodes. Like,
Turns out that the inside joke is that the names actually refer to what they do.
yeah, still, definitely something to.
The names
to
are
watch.
literal.
Yeah. A lot better than, say, Disenchanted. That was fucking disappointing.
Where the joke was that they're trying to make jokes really hard.
Was that the brainchild? That one was that the one that was the brainchild of Dan Harmon and Matt Groening?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe so. I know Matt Groening was in on it, at least.
I don't
Yes,
think
he's-
Dan Harmon was on that one, but Matt Groening definitely was. Like,
I
think a lot of-
thought they teamed up.
Like, I do know Matt Groening because it's got his art style there. It looks like Simpsons, Futurama. The writing is post-movies Futurama. Anyway, we should probably wrap up.
Yeah.
Disenchantment.
Yeah, so,
Disenchanted.
Disenchanted was the movie, wasn't it?
yeah.
Unrelated. It's
Right, no, it was the fucking Disney movie.
Yeah. Anyway.
it's Matt Groening and Josh Weinstein.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, the
yeah.
Dan Harmon thing was something about D&D.
Oh yeah, well, Harmon Quest is a separate thing.
Right.
But yes, it's fantasy setting, so it looks similar.
Still
Is that
certain.
There's this one D&D thing with Muppets that I'm kind of vaguely interested in.
Disenchantment still has a certified fresh rating of 65% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's where I put it.
Which is barely fresh. Barely.
Yeah. I'm amazed it's holding. And a 7.2 out of 10 on IMDb.
Well,
Who knew?
anyhow.
All right. Well, since I already covered studio news at the top of the broadcast, there's not much else to say here. But do be sure to check out my continued long play, part 5 of Legend of Zelda: Minish Cap, tomorrow at 8. And I've given up on the whole idea of having broadcasts at 6 o'clock unless it's an FPS stream with Verizon. And then, of course, we'll be continuing Nocturne in the Moonlight after MS Saga on Sundays. That's the official regular time slot for it. I'm going to try to run it at either 7 or 8 o'clock on Sundays. But if for any reason it's held up, I will continue doing the thing on Tuesday after FPS shenanigans. So, one way or the other, you're going to get your Symphony of the Night quotient every week.
Mm-hmm.
So until then, I'm your host, Mac Hollidan. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, kids.
Mask up and backs up, y'all.